Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Scream Season, and today's video is quite a hard one for me because I'm going to attempt to rank all the Scream films in my most favourite to least favourite. Some will be easier than others, but I want to do this in anticipation of Scream 7, which is currently being filmed in the US now. I grew up with this series. It is the series that ignited my love of horror and slasher films, that and the Halloween series, but I'm a 90s kid. I grew up with Scream from the very get-go. One of my earliest memories is seeing the original Scream at a drive-through movie theatre, which now in Australia, I mean, they're pretty much extinct. And I remember even the security guards were dressed up as Ghostface. And I should have been scared because I was like 6 or 7, but I was so excited. For safety reasons now, obviously you couldn't have security guards dressed up as the killer, but it was just the coolest experience and one that has always stuck with me. I figured that we will rank the films in my order. Obviously everyone is different, there is no right or wrong here. This is just my personal preference, and we're going to start off obviously with Scream 1. It is the film that started the entire franchise, so it's only fitting that that is the best out of all of them. It's also, to me, one of the best slasher films that have done really well with casting. Every time I look at the film, every character is casted so well, especially the group of friends, the kids in high school. You know, in the audition room and on set, you can see that all the actors were really given free rein to experiment with their characters, kind of go as crazy as they wanted to, and it works. I see the chemistry, I see how they're all friends in high school, they're all very different but also very similar at the same time, which I think is lost a little bit in casting nowadays. Casting has become a little bit of a check all the boxes that we need to fill, and don't get me wrong, well, I think, you know, diversity in casting is really important and it's about high time we had it. There are some movies these days that they've ticked all the boxes that they're meant to, you know, we're meant to cast this person, this person, this person, they're all going to be friends. That's great, but sometimes they don't have the chemistry on film and I don't really believe they're friends, and it feels a bit of a cop-out. And I get that casting and films in particular are just under a great deal of scrutiny to show diversity and show all that, but I think at the end of the day it really comes down to their on-screen chemistry. Do I believe this group of friends are friends? Sometimes casting friends is harder than casting love interests in a film, I think. Me and my real life friends, we're very similar in some aspects and very different in some aspects, and I think that's why we work. And I think the original Scream did a really good job at capturing the circle of friends, and every time I watch it, I believe that they are friends. Some are closer than others, some are friends out of, I'm dating this guy, you're friends, but I've always believed it. Another thing I love about the original film, the soundtrack. I think every song in this film fits perfectly. It's great. I listen to it on repeat. I think it's amazing. It was the first horror movie that came out that was really funny and making fun of itself, but took the kills seriously. And from the opening shot where you see Casey hanging from that tree, you know that this is not like the other horror films. And it was the 90s, right? It was the first film to use cell phones. The idea of, you know, the person that's calling you could be just outside your door or in your house. That film in itself, I think, was absolutely perfect. So obviously that is the best. But following up from that one, Scream 2. I think Scream 2 is probably one of the best sequels ever made, not just in the horror genre, in sequels in general. I think it did a really good job of continuing the story, adding some new material that we hadn't seen before, new characters that fit in really perfectly, just some amazing kills as well, some really cool new characters that we loved instantly, bringing back our old favourites, of course, but also had a lot of heart in it as well. There's 2 scenes in particular I always love. The first is when Dewey's reintroduced and him and Sydney have their little moment in the gazebo, and we're introduced to Dewey's theme, which is also one of the best scores I've ever heard, and I get actual chills every time I hear it. And if you've never heard it, I recommend just YouTube it. You know, Dewey's theme, Scream 2. It is great, it's iconic. When they brought it back in Scream 5, I literally nearly jumped out of my seat in the cinemas because music, to me, is like really powerful and emotional. And the other scene I love is with Sid and her professor in the theatre, where he's saying, you know, you're a fighter, you can do this, you've got this. And that's a nice moment where you see Sid kind of decide to sink or swim. And you don't always get that in slasher films. So I love Scream 2 because it comes in with the comedy, comes in with the horror and the gore. We've got some amazing deaths, like Cece's death, just one of the best chase scenes ever, but it had a lot of heart to it as well. And so one of the best sequels ever. And a lot of films could take a masterclass in that one. And Scream 2, I also loved getting to see Cotton Weary's character more. And it was fun watching him on screen because the whole time you're like, well, he didn't kill Sid's mum, but he's definitely got some things going on, and does he just want to be famous, or is there something else? I think him coming back was really a stroke of genius on Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson's part. I loved it. Third favourite Scream film. This was a hard one because I was tossing up between this one and the next one. And they're very similar, but ultimately my third favourite is Scream 4. So Scream 4 came out in 2011, 11 years after the trilogy ended. And that's a really hard thing to do and to do well. And I think, my personal opinion, they did it very well. I remember I saw this film 3 times in the cinemas. I was obsessed. And it was the first Scream film I saw in cinemas when it was released, when it came out. So that was super exciting for me. But I think they did a really good job at coming in 11 years later, reintroducing these characters, bringing in new characters that fit into the world, and it didn't seem too forced. I completely thought the storyline was a very organic storyline. We had Jill, Sid's cousin, and all her friends. And again, the casting was really well. I liked the chemistry that these new kids had with each other. Scream 4 gave us some amazing kills as well. I remember the first time I saw Olivia's kill, where she gets shot out that window, gave me chills. It was brutal, which I absolutely loved. I loved the motivation behind mainly Jill's character. And when you really think about it, in 2011, influencers were only just becoming a thing, but the whole premise that she wanted to be famous for doing nothing or being a victim and was willing to do anything necessary to become internet famous was wild, especially where we are now and where the craze of the internet has taken us. The fact that they were doing that back in 2011 is really kind of eerie, because that's they predicted where the world was going to go, and you hear about all these horrible things that people do, murders included, to become famous and infamous. So I love that Jill's character was doing that. It really foreshadowed where the world was moving. The score as well in Scream 4, I think the score was really well done. I love the scene where Jill's on the gurney and all the paps are trying to take photos, and you got the reporter voiceover, the theme going. It really is eerie, and she's like, yep, I got what I wanted, I'm going to be famous. And I'm glad the movie didn't end there, because then she would have got her way. So cut to the hospital where she's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I just need to kill this bitch. But I think the score, again, for number 4 was really, really well done. And also bringing the trio back, Sid, Gale, Dewey, it worked really well. I think they have great chemistry, and always bringing them back has always worked. And I know a lot of people like, let's get away from Sydney, it's not her story anymore. But to me, it really is. It's about those characters. And if we want to introduce new characters, we can, but they have to work in with Sydney's story in some degree. And if we don't want to do that, it's not Scream. Just go make another film. Don't call it Scream. That's just my personal opinion. My 4th favourite film, which is a film I think gets way too much hate, is Scream 3. And while there are issues with it, I think it's more relevant now after, the whole Harvey Weinstein thing. It really kind of was, again, in a way, foreshadowing what was probably happening in Hollywood at the time, which is really, really scary to think. But I think It was a really good film. Again, it had a lot of awesome kills. I love that it was set on the soundstage while they were making a new Stab film, because it gave us, really great scenes of Sydney's flashback in her bedroom and her mum, and that really adds a bit more depth to not only Maureen's story, and we get to hear about her before, she was just the mum that broke up her family and cheated. It gives Sydney, there's more grey when it comes to her relationship with her mum and who her mum was, and now it's, maybe there's a reason my mum was the way she was. So I like that they gave us more of that. The opening kill with Cotton, great as always. Didn't want him to die, but it's not a Scream film without a character you love dying. Obviously, we have the infamous Gail Bangs, which, yes, very bad. I completely agree. I would never cut bangs, let alone bangs like that. But I think she still looks gorgeous. I mean, it's Courtney Cox. She looks amazing all the time. So what can you do? I also like that we got introduced to Mark Kincaid, which I think Patrick Dempsey is a great actor. I think he has a lot of presence on stage. It was nice to have Sid have a few nice moments with him. One of my favourite scenes, which to me is quite emotional, but I don't think it was meant to be that way, or meant to be as emotional as I see it. But when they're together and he says, she says to him, what's your favourite scary movie? And he says, My Life. And she goes, oh, me too. That was just a nice moment, and that bit always gets me. There's actually a lot of moments in Scream 3 that I think are quite emotional, which again bring you into that world a bit more, and then the next minute someone's getting, gutted like a fish. So I think that's what the Scream films do really well. They balance that emotional and, we've got really good character development and characters we love, but really good kills. And that just hurts all the more when a character you love gets it. So I think Scream 3 gets a lot of hate, but I think a lot of people recently who have rewatched it are kind of viewing it in a different lens. I think at the time when it came out, it was just, we went from Woodsboro to, the college and then Hollywood. What? Yeah, watch it again. The third act reveal where we hear about Roman and what happened to him, again, is another oh shit moment. And then it gets straight into them having their showdown. All of the reveals so far have been pretty epic. I also like the final ending of the third film where they fully wrapped everything up with Sid walking away from the door and it opens by the wind and she kind of just looks back and is like, leave it. I think it gave the audience that closure of she can breathe now. She doesn't have to be looking over her shoulder every time. And that was a nice little touch. And obviously we have Gail and Dewey getting engaged, which was happening in their real life, which I think was really cool that they put that in there. My fifth film in the franchise was Scream 5, or Scream 2022. I think it did really well at going back to the roots of the original films. We went back to Woodsboro. The film felt like a continuation of the other four and actually felt like it was being made by Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven. Obviously, the filmmakers in this one were huge fans of the original films and they did a really good job at paying tribute. Little things for the audience. I remember when I saw Tatum's ashes in Dewey's trailer, I was so excited. Little things that only really diehard fans would care about. I like the new cast of characters, mostly. They felt pretty authentic to me. I didn't have any issues where I immediately really disliked any of them. I probably didn't love them as much, but with every watch they grow on me more and more. Obviously, in this film, we have Dewey's demise, which I knew going into a fifth film, one of the three would have to be killed off, and it probably wasn't going to be Sid. And so I kind of thought, it's probably going to be Dewey, the heart of the film, which is horrible. I think it was needed, even though it was so sad. My only issue with that particular kill is that, you know, Dewey gets distracted by his phone going off. And while it is Gale, his ex-wife, which probably would have made him be a little bit distracted, Dewey's been doing this for a long time with Ghostface. And I think in that moment, realistically, if he's having a showdown with Ghostface, he's not going to be distracted by his phone. And I just thought maybe there was a different way he could have met his demise. Super sad. We have Dewey's theme playing. It's very, very emotional. It sucked, but it was needed. And then it was needed to make Sid and Gale bond more, because they did bond in the other movies, but I think losing Dewey was like the ultimate. It's just us now. Gale's lost her soulmate and Sid's lost someone who was like a big brother. So I think that was needed. It sucked. But if, again, Randy died in number 2 and we all loved him, someone we love had to die in the 5th film. I also love how they mentioned Mark being with Sid, and obviously followers of the film would be like, oh, Mark Kincaid, oh my god. Spoiler alert, he was going to be in Scream 7 but now isn't due to scheduling conflicts, and because they didn't explicitly say it was Kincaid in number 5, it does leave the door open for them to cast someone else in Scream 7, which they have casted Joel McHale from Community. I'm a little bummed about that, but I trust Kevin Williamson, so we'll see how that goes. But I was very looking forward to when Patrick Dempsey said that he was in talks to return. It hasn't worked out that way, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the film. I thought the 3rd act was really, really well done. I had so much satisfaction. We were in Stu's home again. We were in the kitchen again. It felt really well done in paying tribute, but not like it was super forced. Because again, I mean, the house has been sold. I'm sure in the original, Stu's parents, as soon as all that happened, they would have sold the house. It makes complete sense that someone else has moved in 20 years later. I had so much satisfaction when Sydney and Gale are ripping into Amber and throwing her over the kitchen counter. I was in the theatre like, yes, and it was so satisfying to see both of them really just f*** this bitch up after what she's done. So I loved that. The 3rd act, I think, was really well done. I loved the getting her on fire with the hand sanitizer. It was very COVID-esque, so they managed to put that in without explicitly saying, we filmed this during COVID, because no one really wants to remember that time. But when you go and watch it, you go, oh, I remember that time in life. So I think they did a really good job at bringing everything back. I watched it, I think, also 3 times in theatres when it came out, and I was really happy with it. We got good screen time from the original cast. It wasn't just a little cameo that, you know, why do they even bother? They had good screen time for the most part. And now on to my least favourite, number 6. And the notes I wrote here were just meh. I did go into it with quite an open mind. I knew that Sydney wasn't going to be in it, but I really did try and give this one a go. But I just walked out of the cinema feeling really, really disappointed. The new characters that were brought in, I felt personally, were very obviously brought in to be the red herring or possibly the killer. I don't think they had much of a character development beyond that, because that was the premise. Whereas I think in other films, yeah, they brought on new characters to be exactly that, but they just had more of a reason for being there, or more of a presence, like Mickey the film student and Hal, Sid's roommate. I just felt like they fit in pretty seamlessly and I believed it, whereas these new characters in 6, I kind of almost was instantly just like, oh, they're probably the killer or setting up to be the killer, literally what they're there for. I also feel like number 6 was a little bit too heavy with I only remember her name is Jasmine because her name is Jasmine in real life. But the twin, just being like, oh, I didn't catch a killer last time. I got to catch a killer this time. And not really being scared for her life. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get that you want to be right and, you know, but this is real life and someone's trying to kill you. So, you know, whereas I think her focus solely was on being wrong last time, I got a bit over hearing that. I think the New York setting, for some reason, just didn't land with me. I really liked the opening, and when, you know, fellow Aussie Samara Weaving gets killed, and I liked that bit. I liked in the apartment where he's like, what about the movie? And he's like, who gives a about the movie? That I was really hyped for, and I thought, oh, here we go. And then it just kind of, for me, got worse and worse. I think the worst part was the third act killer reveal. I just found it so cringy. While the motive, you know, some of the motives in these kills, they're not original. They're revenge, a tale as old as time. But this one, I just felt the acting by the young kids. They had watched the original film, and the guy was like, I'm going to do exactly what Stu does and act crazy like him. And you know, and at no point did the director cut and be like, I feel like it's a little bit forced, the craziness. Can we do something that's a bit more rooted in how you would act? It felt like a play almost, and that really took me out of the whole third act. Also, Chad's character, where he obviously gets stabbed like 37 times and left for dead, and we see him probably 30 minutes later in the film, and he's, you know, hanging on for dear life. I thought there's no possible way, it's not realistic, and while most of the Scream films aren't realistic, this was just, for me, next level. It was very obvious that the filmmakers were scared to kill off one of their beloved characters, but that's a Scream film, and Wes did it in number 2 with Randy. Even though it broke his heart, it's got to be done, and that is why Scream is such a good film franchise, because it sucks, but we got to do it. And so I think that they kind of, it was good when they killed him and you're like, oh, you really feel that, and he's just getting stabbed and stabbed and stabbed, and then when they bring him back, it was like, oh, really? That's a cop-out. That's really a cop-out. So all in all, I didn't love number 6. I have only seen it once. Every time I see it on Netflix, I think I'm going to give it another go, and I just can't. There's something that stops me. And I think it probably was that it wasn't based around Sid. I think even though I did go in with an open mind, there was a part of me that was like, but that's just my personal opinion. I think there was plenty of people who loved it, but I think it just didn't feel like a Scream film to me. It felt like its new own thing, which is fine, but do another film. Don't make a Scream film. And it was such a departure. And even Gail's scenes, I thought she was a bit stupid and a bit un-Gail-like in this film. Didn't love it. I want to hear your thoughts about that one. There's very mixed. Some people absolutely love it. Some people are more on my side. I'm excited to see what Scream 7 holds, even though there is a part of me that thinks, let's just finish it. I think the trilogy was amazing. The 4th installment was good. We could have ended it there. I'm a little bit over hearing about all the casting updates for Scream 7, and I kind of want to be surprised, so I really don't want to hear much more until we see an official trailer come out, because it kind of takes the fun away, you know, knowing that Dewey's coming back and Stu is coming back. Obviously, it's going to be a flashback, we know that. It would be cool to see it without any, like, knowledge in the cinema, where you go, oh, awesome. So I kind of want to just turn a blind eye and not see anything else, but they are the Scream films ranked to my liking. I'd like to hear what your comments are. Again, obviously everyone's different, and I think a lot of the influence of how you rank the Scream films is kind of the way you saw them. There's a lot of young people now that can binge 1 to 6 straight away, one after the other, or in an entire weekend. And then there's people like me who I literally grew up seeing these films as they came out. I had to wait a year or two in between, and I had to wait 11 years in between, and I think that does change how you perceive them and what they mean to you, because if you're seeing it from a childhood, it's a bit different than seeing it at 22 all in one weekend. So there is a lot of nostalgia that goes into these films, which I think has affected my ranking, which is not a bad thing, I think. But yeah, leave your comments below about your ranking, what you liked, what you disliked. I want to hear everything from the kills to the cinematography to the characters we love and hate or love to hate. And thanks for watching my video. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Bye.